Join us on the fearless pursuit of self-discovery and growth.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production.
Hey guys, happy Monday and welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. You are here with Brooke and Andrea. How are we doing today?
Great. I am actually excited about this episode because authenticity means we just get to be honest.
So if you don't like our authentic self,
I mean,
we can't really do anything about it.
Take
Sorry.
it or leave it because we're just going to be real and raw and honest. I mean, like always, but we're going to actually kind of dig into what that means.
A different level maybe of unapologetically being us. Mm-hmm. If we haven't already, welcome. I mean, if you're new here, we are always really raw and vulnerable. But, the last few weeks we've been talking about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and what we're learning in therapy and the hard work that it really is. And so they were like, let's talk about what it even means to be true to yourself. Like when you're doing this work, why are you doing this work? It's to figure out who are you even?
Yeah.
And it's a hard topic.
Yes, it is. And it's always evolving and changing. And to even know who am I in the midst of it is also changing and evolving. And so it's kind of like this moving target of, who am I today? I mean, I have these core values that pretty much always stay with me, but I feel like your roles change, your career changes, people in your life come and go. It's hard to always be aligned because things are always changing.
Yeah, and I think too, this decade with social media, how do we know who we are when we're always comparing? I think my age and something I'm noticing is this question of who am I is really dictated by the outside noise. And it takes a lot of work to quiet that external noise of not only what I see on the media, but the people I surround myself with, right? Like you're 10 years older than me. And so obviously you're my role model and I look up to you, but we're different. I think about who I was 5 years ago. I still have some of these same core values, but I'm in a completely different spot, health-wise, job-wise, living-wise, things I didn't really think would be a part of my life. And as much as I'm creating my own path for myself, it's like this innate of who am I? Who have I always been? Am I still that girl? Like what part of me is the same and who isn't? And how do you do that work? And why is it so important to do that work?
Yeah.
Is what we're questioning.
I also want you to know that a lot of people my age that are my friends or peers or colleagues say to me, it's so awesome that Brooke is 25 and already doing this work, because a lot of people go their whole life and don't dig into, what do I want out of this and what do I value? And so I just want to applaud you for being 25 when like most people are blacked out and not thinking about important things in their life. And I think it's awesome that you're already at this space and you know that it's not perfect and there's no one right way and that you're continuing to challenge yourself and find that balance in the process.
Yeah, I mean, get you a girl that can do both. I'm just kidding. So yes, I am doing this work, but I still question, like, what does this even mean? How do I get to a point where I know who I truly am and I understand I'm taking into account that different seasons, it's going to be different, it's going to be ever changing. But I'm curious, what does authenticity mean for you? What does this work look like for you? What got you to this point that you're at now?
Yeah. I think about feelings. I feel like if I'm authentically living my life, I'm proud of myself. I think I get this gut punch if I'm lying or if I'm over exaggerating or if I'm engaging in conversations I don't actually feel that way about. Like I get that off feeling. And that to me, it makes me think about being authentic. Like when that feels a little bit off, I know I'm not really aligned. Or, you're going to bed and you're like, why did I even say that? Like, why didn't I stick up for what I know? What do I stand for? And why didn't I say something? And so I think a lot of times for me, it's this feeling, I get this off feeling. And I do wonder what it's like for everyone because I only know my own experience.
Yeah.
And so I tie it to truth telling. Whether it's telling the truth about who I am or what do I enjoy or what am I upset about? Sometimes, we walk through life and we have this anger and we're yelling all of a sudden, or we're being super controlling about something and we think it's totally valid. But sometimes it's like if you notice those big feelings or emotions, you can dig in to identify like, where is that coming from? And so therapy has been a big part of that for me, is kind of saying, yeah, we can have emotions and that's part of being human, but what do they mean? What are they telling me? So when I'm having those big emotions, I like to kind of think about that messy part of me. Like, what is it in me that needs healing that I can address in therapy so that I can authentically live my life in a way that doesn't negatively impact people, you know? And when I'm telling the truth about those things, and I feel like therapy, like there's no choice. You have to get to the root of things. You have to get to the truth of how you're feeling is, you know, I don't know. There's something about telling the truth that I gain self-esteem from it. I'm more confident when I feel like I'm just being fully honest about who I am and what I believe in. And anytime I get away from that, it lowers my self-esteem. I feel worse about myself if I'm not being honest.
I think it takes a certain level of confidence to be authentically who you are and to own your emotions and how you're feeling, and to not just quiet that and stay, you know, in your little bubble, and to speak up for yourself and what you believe in. It's like working on being okay with who you are and how you feel about certain matters. And maybe that comes with age and comes with work. But I'm just wondering how, like, you have always been, to me at least, a very confident person. And so thinking about people who maybe aren't as confident or second guess themselves a lot, or the things that they believe in and don't know who they are, what are the steps to take to become authentic, right? Like, why is this important? What does this even look like?
I think that when I think about my experience with that and I think about how to get started, I like to think about, when am I feeling confident? When am I feeling relaxed? And it just takes some reflection, I think. I think you just have to start thinking about, when is that for me? And if you don't know what you want, how can you attract what you want if you don't know what you want, right? So you're going to have people in your life that you don't even value their opinion because it's so different than you, because you're so confused about what you want out of life. And so I think it's just reflection. I honestly think the whole key to being authentic is reflecting. And it's actually something I really struggle with, to be honest. I know you think I've got it all together. I don't. I'm working on that. Like, I wake up in the morning and I know I have this time set aside before my kids wake up, but I'm like, I need to jam pack it quickly with my exercise routine and my editing time for Gold Ivy. And I push aside the reflection time. And I think that's what I should be prioritizing first, you know? And I think about, you know, Britt Williams' episode, we talked about having this model calendar where basically you're aligning with your values and figuring out how you're going to spend your time in your day, in your week, in your months, in your year. And if I just took 1 hour a week to do that, I feel like it would just set my week on fire. I don't know why I'm not doing it, because I would have value in everything I'm doing and where I'm putting my attention. And it's less than 1% of my entire week. And I feel like I really need to make that a priority, because that's when I would be saying, these are the values that I want to embody, and this is where they'll go in my week. And so I'm actually struggling with it, to be honest.
I'll help you.
Okay.
Sounds like you could use some accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I've put into my daily practice when I wake up on time and my morning goes as planned. Is first thing I do is meditate, get my head clear, and then I journal, and I just force myself to write 1 page, whatever I'm thinking, just get it out. And the more I do it regularly, the more I'll have different prompts, right? So like Ivy reflections or things like that. But if I'm really out of it and I just need to get in the practice of kind of the brain dump, it's just writing down anything that comes to my mind. And what's been really powerful is reading it after and being like, this is how I feel. Okay. Like reflecting back a step further and saying, okay, this is what's actually up in my head. Like, this is truly how I'm feeling, and kind of looking at from an outsider. It's just an interesting perspective. But I think about being in line with who you are and what's important to you, and needing this quiet time, this reflection time. But then I also think a huge part of confidence is your self-worth. Like, why is how you're feeling important? Why does it matter? What do you have to offer? Why should people hear what you have to say in a way?
Or pour time into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a lot with clients when it comes to health coaching of, you know, they want this new identity of someone who does take care of themselves and is fit. And that first step is really adopting that new identity and having that self-worth. I think it kind of goes hand in hand. You can't be an authentic person if you don't have self-worth and believe in your importance and why you matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to think about how all different types of people think about this because, you know, what if you don't value being honest? Mm-hmm. You know, what if that isn't one of your core values? And I feel like that to me is so much of what being authentic is. It's my true self. It's how I truly feel.
Yeah. And I just want to plug to that. When it comes to authenticity, there's so many different people's opinions out there on this, whether it's like research and science behind it, different people's opinions. And, you know, we're going to get into that later in the show, but I just want to call out that it's different for everyone. And as we're doing this work, we're learning what it means for us. And that's what we're sharing. We're not saying that this is how you be authentic. We're just kind of picking apart how we're feeling about it as we're in the midst of this.
And even the experts, I say with air quotations, disagree. Well, one thing I feel like they do have in common, though, is that it's about walking the walk. Like you can say whatever you want, but I think being an authentic person is having these thoughts and ideas and actually following through with them too. You know, it's kind of like, I think it goes kind of with accountability for yourself is checking in, like, what do I value and am I living it? Am I walking it? Am I saying that, you know, I believe in whatever it is and I'm worshiping it, or I'm going, you know, I'm showing those values to my kids. And it's almost like not even an option when you're a parent. Like they are watching you at all times. And so, you know, and they'll call you out too. I mean, Cora's 8 and she'll be like, you said that, but you didn't actually do that, which is nice, but also super harsh sometimes. And so I think it's too really picking and choosing what you decide to say out loud, because if you do want to walk the walk, you're going to have to really live this out.
Yeah. It comes down to integrity, right? I think, and we've talked about that in our confidence episode, is making and keeping these promises that you're making to yourself is building your confidence. And when those promises that you're making to yourself, I think, are in aligned with who you are, what you want in life, that kind of just builds up that muscle of authenticity in a way.
I think too, like you said earlier, Brooke, it can get really complicated with other people's opinions with social media and everything, like hearing that noise and making it question, you know, what do I value? What do I believe in? Especially right now where things are so polarized, I feel like. And, you know, whether we want to admit it or whether we like it or not, we value other people's opinions, you know, and I hate that I'm obsessed with words of affirmation. I need it. You know, it's my love language. And so sometimes I'm like, I need it, but also how much do I value that with who I am? You know, people telling me you're good at this. Is that why I'm doing it?
Yeah. Would I believe it if they didn't tell me?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this topic of being authentic is super tough, because when you do feel like you're out of alignment and you do want to make a shift, a lot of people resist doing it because it can create some really unpleasant waves in your circle, whether it's you want to switch your career or switch up things in your relationships. I mean, living out who you truly are when you haven't been will change your environment. It will change everything around you. And, you know, eventually I think it will all be a blessing because it will be aligned with you, but it's going to be rough.
And work.
Yes. And I think it's why people distract themselves and numb themselves with social media too, is because, you know, you can distract yourself from the true you, you know, probably for way longer than you ever should. And social media makes that really easy on you.
I think it's the same thing with alcohol, drug, like anything you're numbing yourself, you're doing these actions for a reason. It goes back to what you were saying earlier, like this underlining, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's really important? And honing in on how you even feel, right? And there's some really great facts and kind of nuggets that we pulled from different researchers that we think can kind of help craft this in a way that makes sense, of steps and different characteristics of people who have a high level and high sense of authenticity.
I think the biggest reason why we want these steps for you and ideas for you and for ourselves is because, we're constantly focusing on other people's peace and other people's comfort and other people's happiness instead of, at least pouring that amount of effort into ourselves. And if we just did that, we would be on fire all the time. And we want you guys to feel on fire. It feels good to be doing something that feels completely in alignment. I love it. And I want that for other people. And so this is exactly what Ivy Unleashed is about, is breaking down this big word, authenticity. What does it mean into these steps? And we want to, hear from people that have studied this and done the research to determine what does this even mean?
Yeah, it's a big word to tackle. And a lot of people, different psychologists have a completely different viewpoint on it. But one thing that I noticed kind of common was that they all believe that it's an ever-going process, that it's an ongoing process, and it really takes reflecting on your values and understanding the roots of your current beliefs so that you can help unpack them. Do I really feel this way? What do I even believe? What are these beliefs that have been imprinted on me when I was younger? My dad said I wasn't good enough, or my mom said I'll never be skinny or pretty enough. These things that stick with us, and our actions and our beliefs, our self-worth are tied around them. And until we do this work of why do I think the way I think, having that outside perspective of a coach, of a therapist, can we really then figure out what is authentic to me and who I even want to be? All right, so we have psychologist Michael Kernis and Brian Goldman, who developed this authenticity inventory comprised of 4 key factors, which I found very interesting. So breaking authenticity into 4 different factors. The first one, self-awareness, knowledge of and trust in one's own motives, emotions, preferences, and ability. Self-analysis.
Yeah. If you don't know what you want, how can you ever be happy?
And also the things that you're doing, and kind of looking at it as an outside perspective, viewing yourself. So that was interesting. Number 2, unbiased processing. Clarity in evaluating your strengths and your weaknesses without denial or blame. What am I good at? What could I use some work at? I also think unbiased processing, I think of listening more than speaking is what comes to my mind. I was listening to a podcast, and it was Jay Shetty, and it was, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? And the guest said to listen twice as much as I talk.
Yeah, they say you got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. But yeah, it makes me think of Socrates too. He talked about, is it kind, is it necessary, and is it true before you say anything? And I like to think of, I feel like kind is used like so much. I like to think of like warmth. Like, am I adding warmth to the conversation instead of harshness? Because my nature is not super, super warm. I mean, some people say it is, but like to me, I know I could always be warmer than I am. And so that's something I struggle with because I talk a lot. And I'm here to learn. Like, I want to know more about the people around me. And so I need to shut up and listen.
Do you think like more inviting is what you want to be when you think of kind and warmth? Or do you think of more like love? Because when you say warmth and kindness, I think of love. And I feel like you do a great job of that.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you feel that way. But I think it's more like not coaching people, but almost digging deeper to show the warmth that I care about what they're talking about instead of listening to respond. Like I'm listening to learn more about you. And let me ask one more question so I'm listening. Yeah. So I'm interested. And then maybe I'll learn something too from you because I feel like you're in my life for a reason. Why am I not listening to you more?
Yeah. One thing I've learned and have been reflecting on lately is the relationships in my life and wanting them to be deeper, right? Like I'm a very deep person. I don't like surface level conversations. I want to know how you're doing. And I've been getting upset lately when people aren't like, how are you doing? Because I'm very much like, how are you really doing? Like, let's talk. How's this? How's life? Whatever. And I just kind of had this realization of be the model. Like if you show people that this is truly how you care and what it can look like and how good that feels for someone to ask you, how are you doing? Like, how are you? When you walk into a room and not just, hey, or not even acknowledging someone. And so it's this idea of being the model and being okay with that, which is really hard to wrap your brain around. But
yeah, and sometimes you don't want to be, but I think if you're checking in with yourself, you'll be proud of yourself for doing that. So whether people notice or whether people also participate in that same type of behavior, that's on them.
Right.
You know,
it's
and
like knowing your intentions are true and pure to you and your values.
And you won't kick yourself at the end of the night. Like, why did I say that? Like, why did I participate in that? I don't even care about that. You won't be doing that. You'll be like, wow, I reflected. I took a minute. I listened. And other people did what they did, but that's on them. And I'm just going to focus on.
I'm happy with my actions.
Yes.
They align with who I am. This therapy thing. It's getting me.
I know.
Number 3, behavior. Exactly what we're just saying. Acting in ways that are congruent with your own values and needs, even at the risk of criticism or rejection. Doing what's true to you, even if people aren't going to like it. I think that's a hard one because what if what's true to you is being a dick?
I know. Well, I was preparing for this. I'm like, what if there's like a psychopath listening that like literally loves stealing and lying and cheating? They probably aren't listening to Ivy Unleashed.
I hope not. Go away if you are.
You know, maybe they'll take some.
Actually, come, listen, take some of this gold. Yeah, but it's true. Like, I don't know. When you think about it, like, I like to believe that I have really good intentions, but who am I to say that someone else's intentions aren't good?
Coming back to Britt Williams with this topic of other people's opinions, we were kind of talking about what it means to really tune into your authentic self. And I was saying, you know, I really want to touch on not valuing other people's opinions so much. And she said, actually, it's important to take in what they're saying and consider it in case you're too wrapped up in yourself that you don't even realize what you're doing to someone else. Or, you know, if you love them that much that, you know, there's someone that truly cares about your well-being and that's why they're saying it. They're not saying it to make you feel like an asshole. They're saying it so that, you know, they know that maybe you don't mean to do it or whatever. And so she's like, sometimes I do need to consider what other people say, check in with your values, check in with your authentic self, see how it aligns. Maybe you kick that opinion to the curb and maybe you consider it and shift a little bit because, you know, we don't have all the answers and sometimes we do need to hear how other people are feeling.
Yeah. And, you know, if you were feeling a certain way, you would want to tell someone that that's the way they're making you feel, just like vice versa. If I'm coming off in a way that isn't loving and respectful, and I am wrapped up in this self-growth, you know, I want someone to put me in my place or at least have that open dialogue with me. I think that's something that I worry about in doing this work is the being selfish, right? And like the questioning my every move and being so up in it. And Nikki, who we had on with acupuncture, she looked at me when we were here and she's like, you need to be more selfish. And it's like, okay, I'm doing this work. I'm focusing on me. How do you have that balance of doing what's true to you, focusing on you, but then also giving? It's just this
being
learning.
a human is hard.
Yeah.
It's so
I
hard.
didn't sign up for this shit. I'm just kidding.
I also just thought of, I was actually on TikTok last night and I found this woman, her name is Melissa Williams, and she's all about living an authentic life. And a quote of hers was, so many people are trying to be liked that they're missing out on being loved for who they really are.
Oh, I got chills.
I know. And it's so true. It's like you walk in a room and of course you want everybody to like you. But if you're so focused on that, you are never going to please everyone. And half the time people aren't even thinking about you. They're thinking about how they feel and how uncomfortable they are in the room. So I think just staying more aligned with, I'm just going to be true to me in this room. And if people don't like it, whatever.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into number 4, relational orientation. Close relationships inherently require openness and honesty. When you're true to who you are, you show people that it's okay to be you. And it gives them permission to be them and to live authentically. And you can't have those close relationships if you're not open and true and speaking what's on your mind. I think it's a practice for a reason because it's hard. But knowing that when you're in that room, that this is who I am and I want people to love me for who I am and not this fake persona that I'm trying to be, because eventually that's not going to hold up.
Right. And everybody's perception is of you is different than your own. And so you just, if you keep shape shifting for all these people in your life, you're going to be exhausted. Yeah. And you're never going to win. You know, I think the best way to win is to get aligned, you know, to just think about, you know, am I coming from this truth, from this authentic place of of who I truly am.
You do you, boo. That's my piece of gold forever. Oh, yeah, it's an ongoing process. And just to wrap it up, they list out some characteristics of authentic people that I thought was fun and I'd like to share. And it's going exactly with what we're saying. So they tend to take time to develop an opinion, speak their mind, respond to internal expectations rather than external ones. What you expect out of yourself. They forge a unique path to fulfill their passion and purpose. They aren't threatened by failure and can admit their faults. They're often less judgmental of others and have strong self-esteem, which I think goes hand in hand with self-worth and self-esteem. So this article I found on Psychology Today, and it's really great. There's a lot of other great nuggets in it, and so we'll plug it in the blog for you guys to check out if you are interested.
Sometimes when I'm thinking about self-worth, which is so important, and that's something that Brooke and I really want to help build, and the people that listen to us, is your self-worth, is really thinking about, do I feel I'm worth this effort? If you're listening to us and you're thinking, this is a lot of work. They constantly talk about how it's a lot of work. Why do I even want to do this? It's because you're worth it. You're worth the effort. And if you think about your friendships and you think about your relationships, is it true love? Or is it even a true friendship if people don't have access to the real you? Think about who's in your life. Okay, maybe your self-worth isn't super high right now, but everybody has relationships. And if those relationships don't have the true you, that you know what you value when you're living it out and you've expressed that to them, who do they have access to? Who is this? Mm-hmm. Walking around with, you don't know your identity, you don't know what you value. It's like, I feel like walking around blind without getting the joy and the happiness, because when you do things that align with those values, it lights you up and you're spreading joy and you're spreading the happiness and giving people, like we talk about, permission to do it for themselves too.
Yeah. I think, how do you know what your purpose is if you're not putting this work into yourself, right? A lot of times we talk like, I don't know what I'm here for. Like, is this worth it? What is worth it to you? Like turning back that question on yourself of, what do I have to offer? Like, what ignites my soul on fire? Because if you're going to live out your values and what's important to you, think about how just kick ass you could feel, right? To your point of walking around on fire. Mm-hmm. Like, why are you settling for a mediocre life when there are tools that can help you get to a more fulfilled place, to a place where you don't have to escape from your reality, where you can wake up and be excited for the day ahead and make the most of the time you have on earth.
I think about people that don't think they're good at things right now. When you're saying this, I'm thinking about people with low self-esteem. And I want to encourage you, if you do feel down on yourself or you don't feel like you have a ton of self-esteem, is to think about, how can I take one of the weaknesses in my life that I hate thinking about and turn it into a strength, or share that you're struggling with that to empower other people to work on it too. I think that's really hard to admit faults. Like you said, it's hard to admit mistakes, or it's hard to admit what we're not good at. But I think sometimes even saying it out loud or writing it down gives you that permission to let's just think about how I could work on this a bit, because I know if I do, it's going to build my self-esteem. And that's something I know I need. I desperately need to feel better about myself. And so whether you feel like you're good or bad at stuff, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're all bad at certain things. I tell you everything I'm bad at. I could list another 20 things if you want some ideas of what I'm bad at that I'm working on.
I think it comes down to owning it. Like, it's not good or bad. It's my truth. And I think when we talk about having low self-esteem and feeling not good enough, right? Being honest with how you're feeling, where are you at, and where do you want to be? And what is it going to take to get there?
And also, you weren't born feeling that way.
No.
You were not born feeling low self-esteem. Something happened to you. Lots of things probably happened to you.
Life.
Yes. And it's okay to work on healing those things. It's okay. Like, we're giving you permission that, like, whether it's a therapist or any free resource you can get your hands on, that something's happened to you probably numerous times that makes you feel like you don't have that self-esteem. And we just want to send out some empathy for that, because it's tough to feel low. It's tough to feel like you're not good at anything. And this conversation around values gives you the power. We all have them. And we just want you to tune into them so you can start building some skills around that and just start creating this life that looks like something you love, and that you can continue to put action and effort into those things that will make you happy and bring you joy.
It's a practice, right? It's not an overnight thing, just like going to school and getting a job and learning out how to work out or eat in a way that fuels your body. It's not an overnight thing. It's a practice, and it's supposed to be hard, because think of what it's going to get you on the other side of it.
I think a common theme with this work is that it's really vulnerable. It requires you to just feel really raw and open and exposed, and that's tough. And whether it's with someone else, it doesn't have to be with someone else. It doesn't even have to be a friend. This could just be work you do by yourself to get started. And we love Brené Brown. She is all over all of the work that we're finding, all the research we're finding. We love her input. And she has a quote that says, "In order for connection to happen, we have to allow ourselves to be seen, really seen."
Yeah, and the reason we're bringing Brené up is because she's known for her work on vulnerability, shame, and authenticity. And I found an article by Verily, a woman's magazine, that beautifully captures her work on authenticity and why it's so important. But first, I just want to tell you about this magazine because it's incredible. And it could not align more with our mission. And so from their bio on their website, Verily sifts through the noise of the world to elevate what is honest, real, and beautiful for the modern woman, facilitating her connection with the things that matter the most to her. We're fostering a movement that doesn't embrace the ideal body type, image, or status, and that doesn't tell a woman how she's supposed to be, but instead empowers her to be who she is. So before we get in, I just wanted to say, check out this magazine online. It's incredible. It's called Verily. Again, we'll plug it into the blog. But this article that I found by them, it's titled "Powerful Lessons About Authenticity Everyone Needs to Hear." Breaks it down and compares authenticity to some other common characteristics and concepts that are important. So the first one they talk about is a link between authenticity and shame. In her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brown says authenticity is the antidote to shame. We cannot share ourselves with others when we see ourselves as flawed and unworthy of connection. She also says in her book, I thought it was just me, but it isn't. It's impossible to be real when we are ashamed of who we are and what we believe. So again, that's self-worth.
I love all of her books. I can't even talk about
Recommend
them enough. Yeah, I love Daring Greatly is my favorite, but Braving the Wilderness is so good too. And what I love about her books is she is open and raw about what she sucks at, which gives me permission to think about what I suck at. I mean, you laugh along with her because you're like, how is she saying this to the world?
Yeah.
Like, and it's wonderful. She's saying like, you can't heal yourself if you don't cut it open. You know, you've got to be open to this. And I think, why can't we all just do it? We all suck at things. We all have imperfections. I think her work she's like a trailblazer. And I know that you can pick anybody apart that's a researcher. You can pick apart their work. But how can you pick apart someone? I mean, I don't see how you can pick apart Brené Brown. Someone that's literally saying, just be honest about what you're good at and bad at and figure out where to go from there.
And her whole thing too is she's doing the work. And this big quote of hers is, you know, when you're in the arena, if you're not in the arena with the person that's doing the work, you don't have an opinion because you're not in there doing it with them. So I love that she is doing this work, voicing her struggles and talking about it like we are. She says boundaries support authenticity, and those who have a strong sense of their own identity and the ability to express it always have healthy boundaries. And she says that setting healthy boundaries is simple. It comes down to letting others know what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, and I remember from her book saying you can only be your authentic self if you've created boundaries in a way that support that. You know, if things aren't in alignment with that, you feel threatened or unsafe and you feel like you can't be yourself. So if you don't have the boundaries in place, you can't be you.
Yeah. And people want you as your best self. Like if you're not doing what's true to you and aren't you, the people around you can feel that.
Or even if you're struggling and you're just being honest about wherever you're at. I think that's what people want.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's that vulnerability. That's, hey, see me. Here's what I really am, who I really am. All right. And the last one that I love is authenticity is key to compassion. So again, in her books, The Gifts of Imperfection, she says, we can't be compassionate unless we're authentic. Being real with people then is not only essential to connection, but also to compassion. You have to be kind to yourself first and then to others.
It's so true. I love all those lessons. I mean, if you think about it, you move away from shame, you're being kinder to yourself. You know, you're able to be more compassionate to people. I feel like all of those things will add value to your life. Mm-hmm. And so much of our life, we think about what we're doing, what we're performing for people. We're trying to make them praise us. And more of it thinking about like, who am I being? Am I being me? Mm-hmm. It's just so important to think about like who you are, and who you are is determined by what you think. Mm-hmm. And this makes me think of Brooke Castillo. She talks about thoughts all the time. And she says, if you focus on who you are, it ultimately will determine what you do. And like, it couldn't be more simple than that. It's so true. Just focus on who you are. And when you do that, everything else will kind of fall into place. It's still going to be messy. Like we're still human beings and it's hard and there's outside noise, but continuing to focus on who we are. And I need to do this. I'm telling you, I'm struggling with it and I will use you for accountability is setting aside that time. And I say it, but I'm not doing it. And so what I need to do is put it in my calendar. I need that hour a week and figuring out where it makes sense for it. And maybe that's Sunday for me. Maybe that's my most relaxed day now that I take an hour then. It's not work, it's aligning with my values, which I think Jesus would love for me to do. I'll be nicer, I'll be kinder, I'll have my boundaries in place. And I encourage everybody else to do that too. Maybe it's not an hour, maybe it's literally 10 minutes to start. To set aside the time, but actually schedule it so it does happen.
Yeah. Our thoughts create our actions, right? And when you come back to these thoughts, it's identity. Who am I? And if you don't like who you are, what is that identity of someone that you want to be? So when we think of behavior change, we think of, adopting the identity of someone who does eat a certain way that fuels their body or does love themselves and has a positive body image. Whatever it is, I want to get to the point that it starts with your identity and being in aligned with who you are or maybe who you want to be, and starting with crafting that. What is this identity? Who is this? What do they do? What do they think? And just start there.
And do what feels right, what feels good in your gut. If you need to pray about it, pray about it. If you need to talk with someone about it, talk with someone about it. Whatever you need to do to start to feel like you're more at ease and follow that ease. Follow the peace in your life. When you're not in an alignment, it doesn't feel peaceful. It does not feel at ease. I feel like that can be your compass. Follow the ease, follow the peace. And if you need help, we're here for you. And we have resources and all kinds of research that we'll connect in the blog so that you can read it and see what speaks to you.
Yeah, and follow that ease, but also know that it's hard work. It's practice. It's called a practice for a reason, but you will notice that the more you do this work, the more peace, the more ease you will find.
I love that thought. And we are going to keep challenging you to be your authentic self. And we are going to keep challenging ourselves to show up authentically for you as you listen to us, as you watch what we're doing, and hold me accountable, because I want to keep diving into this and it's not always easy.
Well, we got a whole business to keep us accountable, so there's no out now.
Yes. All right. Well, now it's time for our 3 gold stars.
Number 1, write down what comes to mind when you think of being at ease. And how can you create more of that feeling?
2, reflect on what environments give you anxious feelings or uncomfortable feelings and what you can do to prepare yourself, or how you can limit your time in that environment.
And lastly, number 3, think of a supportive relationship where you've given access to your authentic self and what benefits would come from being even more vulnerable with them.
And today your piece of gold comes from Clarissa Pinkola Estes.
From Women Who Run with the Wolves, To be ourselves causes us to be exiled by many others, and yet to comply with what others want causes us to be exiled from ourselves.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.